Oh, by the way, I've got something of a sermon. I think it's a clever sermon on VR 180. I did it on my deck when I was blowing leaves off earlier today. And if you don't want to hear it, turn the sound down and at least enjoy the scenery of being out in. I mean, I've got plenty of other VR 180s of sunny days and leaves and fall weather that if you're in the middle of New York City on such a day, up in some building, dealing with crap on the phone, you put on your VR headset. You really don't have to come to my channel to see it. There are other videos out there, but maybe you've already really exhausted those ones and you want to find something new. Just turn down that one. You don't have to listen to me. I don't really want to really be big because I have a fucking ego. I was thinking about this as I was outside. I was thinking, what's the worst thing that could happen to me? In my mind, it's probably not what you really think it is the worst thing that could happen to me, but in my mind, it is. For this message to get out, to be super effective, than people coming back around saying, "Oh, I really liked your stuff," and and there's a side of my personality that I know is there that I just don't want to feed it shit. And that's the guy who's like, "Hey, yeah, I really came up with it. I'm such a beautiful person." Mr. Narcissist, Mr. Ego, fucking evil guy. See, the thing about ego, this is it. You end up telling everybody how wonderful you guy is, and the demons will actually come out of the woodwork to come and tell you that stuff, so that you end up talking about yourself and talking at length. Like I've done this many times in these videos, and then you come to the realization, oh fuck, that was a demon, and they were just playing to my ego. This whole thing is like that, but there's got to be something beneficial in what I'm saying. Um, when I was a bagger for Kroger, there's a good way of of self deprecation. That's something you won't get from a narcissist. That's something you won't get from a sociopath, a psychopath, from Donald Trump. Self deprecation. That's a sign of someone really coming to terms with what they've got as a problem and letting people know this is how I don't want to be. And it's going to come across in every friggin' little sermon, evangelistic, whatever the fuck it is that I think I'm doing. Um, and there are going to be guys that are going to say, "Can you just shut the fuck up because nobody cares?" Those guys really are not that great at communicating how much they hate hearing me talk. You are your own best critic. Everybody, that's pretty much true. There's a part of me that says maybe all the shit that's coming out of my mouth is coming from Satan, and I can think of all sorts of ways this stuff comes out. There's also something in the Bible says, "To him who has ears, let him hear." If you say the wrong things, it says, "Let him be cursed." It doesn't say damned to hell. It just says, "Let him be cursed." That's something I got going into a church service and people talking about and clarifying for me, and it's something I needed. What it really means is it means that God says, "Okay, you need some Satanism dealing with this issue." Then Satan comes over. It's like good cop, bad cop. God's not going to deal with it because this is not his territory. This is not God's territory. This is Satan's territory. God will use Satan. God will just hand you over to Satan, and Satan will kick your ass. That's what that's really saying. And I'm kind of like, hurt me plenty. Wasn't that a selection in Doom? John Carmack's fantastic. Him and, was it McGee? What's his name? The guy who made Alice, that other video game. I don't remember I remember the last name. Those guys came together to make something. John Carmack, ID Software. They put out a posting. I almost took it up because I had taken assembly language on the 8086, but I wasn't a professional at it. And they were like looking for somebody to do 8086 assembly. I think whenever they were bringing over the AI engine that I had heard John was working on the next computers, and then they were porting it to the 8086s so that they could get it running. They weren't going to do it on Windows. They were going to do it on MS-DOS. And 808, the best thing that MS-DOS could ever really do is really just give you direct access to the hardware. And you could either use their routines or make your own. And where those routines stored in the Intel processor, you can use the routines that are on the Intel processor, or you can use the subroutines that Microsoft gives you, the interrupts, the store into these AX and registers, and you then call an interrupt that then goes and throws the registers on the stack, and then goes and executes some assembly code. And when it's done, it pops off the stack, the registers, so the computer continued to do whatever the heck it was doing when it got interrupted. That's how you do routines, subroutines, and one way you do subroutines inside of assembly on the 8086 is I took that class after I took digital electronics. I did better at digital electronics than I did at assembly. But it was nice to see how it all fit together, hardware interrupts and software interrupts. I haven't used any of that stuff since. Carmack maps was really kind of cool. Oh man, error correction. What was that simple error correction that they had where you could, what's the name of that stuff? Hamming code. Hamming code is so beautiful. Get into the XOR on that stuff and you'll start to understand it. It's some Hamming, that guy, if that's the name, if that's him, that guy that was a work of art. He probably did it in a day for all I know. That's how those guys are. I've known guys like that who come at the very end of the course of whatever it was in college, just chug something out in a couple of days, throw it up to the teacher. Teacher gives an A+, and I'm just like, I've been making every class, and this guy hadn't been making every class. I know where this guy had been. And then in the last 3 days, he just aces the friggin' thing. The guy who did this, his name is Brennan Underwood. We have a popular cohort friend, a really good guy. I won't get his name. He's got a private life. I don't want to mess with that. Brennan is pretty cool. I think he's pretty cool because he really won't, he doesn't have an ego problem. He just is a fucking wonderful nut. His brother is Justin Frankel, the guy that came up with Winamp that AOL gave $400 million to. I think that was the number. And they just kind of sat around and said, hey, this is wonderful, 400 million. What kind of startup crap can we do with this Winamp? And Winamp was super cool. MP3 player with all these 3D visualizations and stuff to really just exploit to people what 3D could do now, that you didn't really need to do ray tracing to do 3D. All you need is the simple method of shading polygons called grow shading, which is really just taking the vertex normals, deducing the lighting from the vertex norm using dot products with lights. You come up with lighting of the vertices. You'll get this from OpenGL, and then you'll do gradient interpolation across the triangles of the color. That's all you do. Isn't even light. It's just color. Simple gradient, a tri-gradient, a simple interpolation of RGB over a triangle, which is the simplest shape in 3D graphics. Mainly what its big deal is that it can't be twisted, so you can't do what you do with a polygon. You twist it, and then the polygon's surface normal ends up pointing horizontal rather than outwards, and what happens to your lighting of that thing. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. The triangles are what you want to do your normal calculations on, and then do the dot products to those things, and to deduce from the polygons, which is, you don't even have to specify normals, just relationships between the polygons, the edges they share, or whatever else you can come up with how to do that. Coming up with the edge normals, that's only for Phong shading. All you need for grow is vertex normals. Vector addition of is it 3? You can do more than that, but all the connected polygons to every vertex, you do a vector addition of all the surface normals that are pointing outward, which you determine by the orientation of how the vertices are specified. I like to have these little things because it's up there and I know it's in there, and I love to put it out. Teachers love to do this stuff. They love to pass it on because it's kind of like, wow, I get to talk about this. Okay, I'm going to dump